Hello, everybody. Hi. It's been a while. It has, but it hasn't. Oh my goodness. The beard stream yesterday was fun. Even though we had some technical difficulties, it was still really fun. Got a nice iced coffee. So yeah. We are going to be delving back into the Way of the Shadows. Or the Way of Shadows, my bad. I've been saying the Way of the Shadows this entire time. Alright, just a moment. Oop out. We are going to this type. I trying to fix my. Okay, now hold on. Oh, probably use my camera. Okay, so I will be right back. Whatever. It's not working. It doesn't matter. I was just trying to make it a little more professional looking, but that's fine. Admire the junk that I have. That is my back wall. Got a Baldi's Basics figure right here. I got a big ass Bionicle. This is like a Kojima Ducky. Two Ludens figures. I got a whole Deadpool collection in Pops right here. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Alright. But I'm sure everybody who is here has come to listen to the reading. I have an eyelash in my eye. Fuck. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Can we just not today? I just want to fucking read, man. Kind of hard to read when I got something in my eye. Goodness. Alright, well, I think we got it. Anywho, let us begin. Okay. we left off on chapter 17. Kyler tried to gawk at the right things as he was ushered through the Gears estate. Azoth, Mama Kay had told him, would gawk at anything big or gold. Baronet, Kyler Stern, would gawk only at things that were both, and the art. Logan had invited him to visit to make amends for hitting him, and Kyler's first job, for the Sakage, was to make sure they became friends. The porter escorted him to another, better-dressed man. Kyler almost greeted him as Duke Gear before realizing he must be the Gear's Chamberlain. Chamberlain took him through the vast entry hall with dual stairs that climbed 3 stories, flanking an enormous marble statue of 2 men, twins, facing each other in battle, each seeing the same opening in the other's defense, each lunging. It was one of the most famous statues in the world. Mama Kay had told Kyler, the Grosk twins' doom. In history, Mama Kay said, the Grosk twins had been heavily armored, and during a long battle each had lost the thin tabards that, at the time, all men wore over plate mail, and all that identified them if they were separated from their standard bearers. They had indeed killed each other, though each had avoided the other in earlier battles. Here the men were naked except for a shield and sword. Because of the shield's placement, each was seeing the twins' face for the first time even as he struck the death blow. The Chamberlain took Kyler up the stairs and down one long wing of the estate. The hallway was wider than most of the alleys in the Warrens. Both sides were crowded with marble busts and paintings of men speaking, men fighting, men seizing women, families moving, women mourning the aftermath of battles, and horrid monsters boiling out of the gaps in the ground. Every picture was framed with heavy gold leaf. Most were big. Walking behind the Chamberlain, Kyler could gawk as much as he wanted, and he did. Then they stopped at the huge door. The Chamberlain rapped on it and the staff he carried, and opened the door to a library with dozens of shelves and orderly rows, and the walls lined with books and scrolls to height of 2 stories. My lord, Baronet Kyler Stern. Logan Gear arose from a table with an open scroll laid across it. Kyler, I was just finishing. I borrowed this scroll from. Oh, never mind. Welcome. Thank you for inviting me, Duke Geyer. Your estate is beautiful. The statue of the Grosk twins is breathtaking. He was reciting it the way Mama Kay had taught him, but now he meant it. Please, call me Logan. You're most kind. You really like it? Logan asked. The "you're most kind" gave him away. Logan was trying as hard to be an adult as Kyler was. Kyler was nervous because he was a fraud, but Duke Logan felt like a fraud too. The title was too big and too new for him to feign comfort convincingly. So Kyler answered honestly, "Actually, I think it's amazing. I just wish they weren't naked." Logan burst out laughing. "I know. Most of the time I don't notice it anymore, but every once in a while I come in the door and there's 2 huge naked men in my house. Because of my new duties, I'm meeting all of my father's retainers and friends again. Really, it's a chance for ladies to introduce their daughters and hope I fall madly in love." Oh my god, my throat. I'm sorry. My goodness. We're not going to do a whole super long stream today. I do have some other stuff I have to finish up, but I wanted to make sure I got this in. Okay. I'm hoping I fall madly in love. I was greeting a lady and her daughter. I won't name names, but they are beautiful women and very prim, very modest. I'm pretty tall, right? And they both have to really look up to me in the eye, and as I'm talking and I'm in the middle of a story, the mom is tittering and the daughter looks utterly captivated, and I start to wonder if I've got something in my hair or my ear or something, because they both keep glancing just a bit to the side. "Oh no," Kyler said, laughing. I glance over my shoulder, and they're 3 times the life size. It's marble genitalia. And there's this moment where they realize that I've noticed that they've been looking over my shoulder the whole time, and I realize this is the first time that the daughter has ever seen a naked man. I totally forget what story I was telling them. They laughed together, Kyler desperately thankful that Logan had given enough context so he could figure out what genitalia meant. Did all nobles talk like this? What if next time Logan gave the punchline without the context? Logan pointed to a portrait on the library wall of a square-jawed bald man dressed in unfamiliar style. I have him to thank for that, my great-great-great-grandfather, the art lover. Kyler smirked, but he felt he'd been slapped. Logan knew things about his great-great-great-grandfather. Kyler didn't even know who his father was. There was a silence, and Kyler knew it was his turn to fill it. I heard that the Grosk twins actually led the 6 battles against each other." "You know their story?" Logan asked. "Not many people our age do." Belatedly, Kyler realized the risk of posing as a story lover to this man who loved books and could actually read them. "I really like old stories," Kyler said, "but my parents don't really have any use for me wasting my time filling my head with stories." "You really do like stories." Eileen always starts pretending to snore when I talk about history. Eileen? Oh, Eileen Gunder. Prince Eileen Gunder the 10th. Logan's world really was different. "Look at this," he beckoned Kyler to the table. "Here, read this part." "Be happy to, if I could read." Kyler's heart seized up. His disguise was still so fragile. "You're making me feel like my tutors," he said, waving it off. "I don't want to read for an hour while you're twiddling your thumbs. Why don't you tell me the good parts?" "I feel like I'm doing all the talking," Logan said, suddenly awkward. "It's kind of rude." Kyler shrugged. "I don't think you're being rude. Is it a new story or what?" Logan's eyes lit up and Kyler knew he was safe. No, it's the end of the Alcestia cycle, right before the Seven Kingdoms fall. My father's having me study the great leaders of the past. In this case, Jorson Alcestis, of course, when they were under siege at Black Barrow, his right-hand man, Ezra the Mad, well, it wasn't Black Barrow yet, and Ezra didn't go hide out in Ezra's Wood for another 50 years or something. Anyway, Ezra is maybe the best magus ever, behind Emperor Jorson Alcestis himself. They're under siege with what's now Black Barrow, and Ezra starts making the most amazing stuff. The warhammers of Oren Razan, fire and lightning traps even untalented soldiers can use. Urok, the Sword of Power, Ears, the Staff of Law, and then the 6 magic artifacts, Ka-Kari. They each look like a glowing ball, but the 6 champions can squeeze one and it melts and covers their whole bodies like a second skin and gives them power over the element. Ericus Dadriel gets a skin of silver liquid metal that makes him impervious to blades. Corvair Blackwell becomes Corvair the Red, the Master of Fire. Trace oh my god, that's a long one. Trace Arva Gulania. Arva Gulania goes from grossly ugly to the most beautiful woman of the era. Oren Razan gets earth, weights of 1,000 pounds, and turns his skin to stone. Irenia Blockway gets the power of everything green and glowing. Shrad Martin gets water and can suck the very liquid from a man's blood. There was an announcement of you going live on Discord. Really? That's kind of dumb. I'm sorry. Isn't. Shoot. Oh, well, at least you're here. That's all that matters. The thing that has always made me curious is that Jorson Alcestis was a great leader. He brought together so many talented people, and lots of them were difficult and egotistical, and he put them in harness together, and they worked. But in the end, he insults one of his best friends, Asaelis Thorn, and gives the Ka-Kari to Shrad Martin instead, whom he doesn't even like. Do you know Asaelis Thorn? Heard the name, Kyler offered. That much was true. Sometimes the guild rats would huddle around a window to one of the taverns when a bard visited, but they could only hear bits and pieces of the stories. Asaelis was this amazing fighter, but a noble fool. No subtlety. He had hated lies, politics, and magic, but put a sword in his hand and he'd go charging an enemy force solo if he had to. He was so crazy and so good that his men would follow him anywhere. But he was all about honor, and seeing lesser men honored before him was a huge insult. It was that insult that led Asaelis to betray Jorson. But how could Jorson have missed it? Excuse me? He had to have known he was insulting him. What do you think? Kyler asked. Logan scrubbed a hand through his hair. Probably something boring. Like that there was a war going on and everyone was exhausted and starving and not thinking clearly, and Jorson just made a mistake. What does that teach you about being a leader? Kyler asked. Logan looked perplexed. Eat your vegetables and get enough sleep? How about be nice to your inferiors, or they might kick your ass? Kyler suggested. Are you asking me to spar, Baronet Stern? Your exalted dukeliness, it would be my pleasure to take you down. Well, there goes chapter 17. I'm almost done with my iced coffee and barely have started. Ah, delicious. I did regular decaf with Cinnabon creamer and a splash of apple syrup and a little bit of vanilla oat milk. Yeah. Too bad today. It's a cold one. I'll tell you that much. And I'm still hungry. I had a little bit of brunch. I had scrambled eggs with ham and spinach and feta. Good. Heard one of my cats startled me. Alright. Oh, my knee. Oh my god, that hurt. Chapter 18. Kyler stepped into the safe house, flushed from his victory. He'd got 3 touches to Logan's 2. Logan fought better, but as Mama Kay had told Kyler, he'd also grown a foot in the last year and hadn't adjusted to his new height yet. Not only did I just make Logan Gear my friend, Kyler said, I also beat him in the sparring. Durzo didn't even look up from the calcinator. He turned the flame up higher beneath the copper dish. Good. Now never spar with him again. Hand me that. Hurt, Kyler took a flask from under the whirling tubes of the alembic and gave it to him. Durzo poured the thick blue mixture onto the calcinator. For the moment, it sat there, still. Small bubbles began forming, and within moments the mixture was boiling rapidly. Why not? Kyler asked. Get the slops, boy. Kyler grabbed the pig's slop bowl and brought it to the table. We fight differently from what any of the city's sword masters teach. If you spar with Logan, you will adopt his by-the-book style and become a worthless fighter. Or you'll give away that you're being taught something utterly different. Or both. Kyler scowled at the calcinator. His master was right. Of course, and even if he weren't, his word was law. The blue mixture was now a dark blue powder. Durzo lifted the copper plate from the flames with the thick wool pad and scraped the powder into the slop bowl. He grabbed another copper plate and poured more of the blue mixture onto it, and put it above the flames, setting the first aside to cool with a heavy mitt. Master, do you know why Jorsen Alcestis would insult his best friend by not giving him the Kakari? Maybe he asked too many questions. Logan said Asaelis Thorn was the most honorable of Jorsen's friends, but he betrayed Jorsen and that led to the fall of the Seven Kingdoms, Kyler said. Most people aren't strong enough for our creed, Kyler, so they believe comforting illusions, like the gods, or justice, or the basic goodness of man. Those illusions fail in war. It breaks men. That's probably what happened to Asaelis. Are you sure? Kyler asked. Logan's reading of it had been so different. Sure, Blint asked, scornfully. I'm not sure about what the nobles here did 7 years ago when they ended slavery. How would anyone be sure about what happened hundreds of years ago far away? Take that to the pig. Kyler picked up the slops and took them to the pig they'd recently acquired for Master Blint's experiments. As he was returning, he saw Blint staring at him as if he was about to say something, and there was a small whoosh as flame leapt from the copper plate behind Master Blint. Before Kyler could flinch, Blint whirled around. Phantom hand stretched out from his hands and grabbed the metal plate directly from the fire and set it on the table. Then the hand was gone. It happened so fast, Kyler wasn't sure he had imagined it. The plate was smoking, and what should have been blue powder was now black crust, a black crust that Kyler had no doubt he would soon be scraping off until the copper shone. Blint swore. See, you get caught up in the past and you become useless to the present. Come on, let's see if that stinking pig's still alive. Then we need to do something with your hair. The pig wasn't still alive. After the amount of poison it had ingested, it wasn't safe to eat. So Kyler spent half the day cutting it into pieces and burying it. After that, Master Blint made him strip to the waist and rubbed a pungent paste through his hair. It burned his scalp, and Blint made him keep it in for an hour. But when he finally rinsed the hair clean, Blint showed him his own reflection in the glass, and he barely recognized himself. His hair was white blonde. Just be thankful you're young, or I would have to smear it on your eyebrows too, Blint said. Now get dressed. The Azoth closed. The Azoth persona. I got to go with you on a job? Get dressed. I understand why apparent consumption is 900 gunders. I'm sure you have to do multiple poisonings to mimic the disease, the noble said. But 1,500 for apparent self-murder? Ridiculous. Stab your man and put the knife in his hand. How about we start again, Master Blint said quietly. You speak as if I'm the best wet boy in the city. I'll speak as if there's a chance this side of hell at that. I'll take the job. The tension sat thick in the upstairs room at the inn. Lord General Brant Agan wasn't pleased, but he took a breath, ran a hand through his gray hair, and said, Why does faking a suicide cost 1,500 gold? A properly staged suicide takes months, Master Blint said. Depending upon the debtor's history, I'm after a known melancholic that can be shortened to 6 weeks. If he's tried to suicide before, it can be as little as a week. I gain access in one way or another and administer special concoctions. Azoth was trying to pay attention. But there was something about being back in his old clothes that made the illusion of the last weeks come crashing down. Kyler was gone, and not because Azoth was following orders and pretending to be Azoth. Kyler had been a mask of confidence. It had fooled Logan, and it had fooled Azoth for a little while. But the mask had fallen away. He was Azoth. He was weak. He didn't understand what he was doing here, or why, and he was scared. Blint continued. not so much as glancing at him. The debtor becomes depressed, withdrawn, suspicious. Symptoms gradually worsen, then maybe a favorite pet dies. The target is already peevish and paranoid, and soon he lashes out at his friends. The friends who visit, at least those who take refreshment, grow irritable while they are with the debtor. They quarrel. They stop visiting. Sometimes the target writes the note himself. Sometimes he even commits the suicide himself. Though I monitor that closely to make sure he chooses an appropriate method for the effect desired. When given proper time, no one suspects anything but self-murder. The family itself will often hush up the details and scatter what little evidence there is. By the High King's beard, is such a thing possible? The Lord General asked. Possible, yes. Difficult, very. Takes a considerable number of carefully mixed poisons. Do you know that everyone reacts differently to poisons? And a huge amount of my time. If a forged note is required, the target's correspondence and journals are analyzed so that not only the handwriting, but also the writing style, and even certain choices of wording are identical. Durzo smiled wolfishly. Assassination is an art, my lord, and I am the city's most accomplished artist. How many men have you killed? The Lord General asked. Suffice it to say, I'm never idle. The man fiddled with his beard and continued looking through the handbill Master Blint had given him, obviously unsettled. May I ask about the others? Suddenly respectful. Excuse me. I prefer that you only inquire about those deaths you're seriously considering, Master Blint said. Why is that? I value secrets very highly, as I must, so I don't like to discuss my methodology. And, to be honest, knowing too much tends to frighten those who employ me. I had a client some time ago who was very proud of his defenses. He asked me how I'd fulfill a contract on him. He irritated me, so I told him. Afterward, he tried to hire another wet boy to kill me. He was turned down by every professional in Sonaria. He ended up hiring an amateur. Oh, my eyeball. One sec. Give yourself the status of a legend, the Lord General said, his thin face pinching. Of course Durzo Blint was a legend. Who would hire him if they hadn't known that? At the time, hearing Master Blint speak of his trade to a noble, to someone like Count Drake, was eerie. It was like Azoth's two worlds were being pressed uncomfortably close to each other, and he could feel the noble's awe in himself. In the guild, Durzo Blint had been the legend because he had power, because people were afraid of him, and he had never had to be afraid of anyone. That was what drawn Azoth to him. But this noble was odd for different reasons. To him, Durzo Blint was a creature of the night. He was a man who could come violate those things he held dear. He undermined all of what the Lord General had thought safe. The man didn't look afraid. He looked disgusted. Not suggesting that I terrify every wet boy in the city, Master Blint smiled. The fact is that we professionals are, if not a closed group, at least a small leagues, some of us even friends. The second wet boy he went to was Scarred Rabble. I've heard of him, Brant Aiken said. Apparently the second best assassin in the city. Wet boy, Blint corrected. And a friend of mine, he told me what his client was doing. After that, well, if a military metaphor works better for you, it would be like trying a small raid on a city that was expecting it instead of an unsuspecting city. In the second case, it might work. If it was the first, it was a suicide. I see, the Lord General said. He paused for a moment, apparently surprised Master Blint knew who he was, then suddenly grinned. And you're a tactician, too. How so? You haven't had many contracts taken out on you since you started telling that story, have you? Master Blint smiled broadly. There were two men, Azoth saw, who understood each other. Not a one. After all, diplomacy is an extension of warfare, Blint said. We usually say that warfare is an extension of diplomacy, Brant Aiken said, but I think I agree with you. I once found myself outnumbered and forced to hold a position against the Lanat for 2 days to wait for reinforcements. I had some captives, so when I put them in a vulnerable position and told their guards we would receive reinforcements at dawn, during the fighting, the prisoners were allowed to get free and promptly told their superiors the news. The Lanat army was so disheartened that they held back until we had been reinforced. The diplomacy saved our lives, which brings us back to the matter at hand, the Lord General said. I need some diplomacy that's not on this list of yours. I'm afraid I've not been completely forthright with you, Master Blint, the Lord General said. I'm here for the king. Master Blint's face went suddenly devoid of emotion. I understand that by telling you that, we might lose the man who provided me with your name, but the king deems this to be worth risking the lives of both a contact and one of his ministers, namely myself. You haven't done anything foolish like surround the building with soldiers, have you? Master Blint asked. Nothing of the kind. I'm here alone. Then you've made one wise choice today. More than one. We've chosen you, Master Blint. And I've chosen to be honest with you, which I hope you appreciate. As you know, the king's wealthy, but not politically or military strong. That's a bitter pill, but it's not news. Our kings haven't been strong for 100 years. Eileen Gunder wishes to change that. But in addition to internal struggles of which you'd no doubt know more than I'd care to learn, the king has recently learned that some rather devious plots to steal vast sums of money not only from the treasury, but in a multitude of schemes also from almost every nobleman in the country. The idea being, we think that Cennaria becomes so impoverished that we'll be unable to maintain an army. Sounds like a lot of money to steal without anybody noticing, Master Blint said. The Chancellor of the Exchequer has noticed. He's the one arranging it. But no one else has noticed yet. The schemes are a little short of brilliant. The plot won't even ripen for 6 or 10 years. Men are being placed in key positions and have as yet done nothing wrong. Much more, but you don't need to know it. What do I need to know? Blint asked, his eyes heavily lidded. I've made a study of you, Master Blint, the Lord General said. Though information about you is difficult to find, everyone knows that the Sakage holds an enormous amount of power here. People outside the country know it. Kalidor knows it. King needs you for more than a dozen jobs spanning years. Some will involve simple assassination, some will involve information planting, and some will not involve killing at all, but simply being seen. God King Ursul must believe the Sakage and its assets have an alliance with us. You want me to become a government agent? Not exactly. I suppose you'd give me a pardon for all I've done, Master Blint asked. I've been authorized to offer that. Master Blint stood, laughing. No, Lord General. Good day. I'm afraid I can't take no for an answer. The king has forbidden it. Do hope you're not planning on threatening my life, Master Blint said. First, the Lord General said the first time, we'll kill the boy. Ooh, chow. My attention is kind of divided. I'm watching you and football at the same time. Well, I mean, shoot. I'll take the support right now. I didn't know you watched football. Is it football like soccer or fucking American football like the Super Bowl? We have made it to chapter 19. Again, the internet is not doing good at all. Alright. You can't tell, but the lights in the background are supposed to be purple and blue. Blue. Alright. Chapter 19. Master Blint shrugged. So? And we'll kill your lover? I believe her name's Vonda. You can kill the bitch, but that might give you some trouble considering she's 4 months dead. Lord General didn't even pause. And we'll kill this mama, Kirina, who seems to be your only friend. Then we'll come after you. I don't want it to be this way, but this is what the king offers. You're making 2 mistakes, Master Blint said. First, you're assuming that I value other people's lives more than my own. How can you know what I do and believe such a thing? Second, you're assuming that I value my own life. Please understand, I'm under orders. Personally, I'd rather have nothing to do with you, the Lord General said. I think it's beneath the dignity of a king to hire criminals. I think it's immoral and foolish for him to put money in your purse rather than chains on your wrist. I find you abhorrent, a wreck of a human being barely resembling what once must have been a man. But the king has decided we need a sellsword like you. I'm a soldier. I've been sent to get you, and I won't fail. And you're making a tactical blunder, Master Blint said. The king might kill my apprentice, my friend, and even me, but at the least he will have lost his Lord General a portrait. I don't think he would find my death to be such a very great loss, the Lord General said. Ah, figured that out, have you? Blint asked. This may be the first time you've seen me, Brent Egan, but it isn't the first time I've seen you. The Lord General looked puzzled. So you've seen me. So have half the people in the city. Does your wife still crowd your side of the bed? Sweet, isn't it? Does she still wear that drab nightgown with the daisies embroidered on the hem? You really love her, don't you? Lord General Aegon froze. You call me abhorrent? Durzo asked. You owe me your life. What? Didn't you ever wonder why you got a promotion instead of a knife in the back? From his eyes, even Azoth could tell that the Lord General had. I was in your house the night King David died. When you and Regnus Gear met, I was to kill your wife as a warning to you. Later, the prince would offer you a better marriage to a young noblewoman who would be able to give you sons. I was authorized to kill you both, and Regnus if you were plotting treason. I spared you, and I don't get paid unless I leave corpses. I don't expect your gratitude, Lord General, but I demand your respect. Lord General Aegon's face went gray. You told Eileen that my price was the promotion? He thought he bought me off with a promotion rather than a wife. Azoth could see him mentally reviewing comments he must have heard over the last 4 months and getting sicker and sicker. Why? You're the illustrious general, the old war hero. You tell me, Durzo sneered. Putting me in charge of the army divided the Sakage's enemies. It kept the king from putting someone he could trust in charge of the military. You bastards have got people everywhere, don't you? Me? I'm just a sellsword. I'm just a wreck of a human being. The general's face was still gray, but his back never bent an inch. You've given me much to think about, Master Blint. Though I still believe the murders you've committed merit hanging, I dishonored you and myself with my hasty words. I apologize. My apology, however, has no effect on the king's determination that you serve him. Get out, Master Blint said. Get out, and if you reconsider your threats, I'll be here for a few minutes. The general rose and, watching Master Blint, carefully walked to the door. He opened it, kept his eyes on Master Blint until he closed the door behind himself. Azoth heard his steps echo down the hall. Master Blint stared out the door and scooted back from the table. Instead of relaxing now that the general was gone, he tensed. Everything about him spoke of potential action. He looked like a mongoose waiting for a serpent to strike. Step away from the door, Azoth, he said. Stand by the window. There is no hesitation. Azoth had learned that lesson. He didn't have to understand. He just had to obey. He heard a crash on the stairs and loud cursing. Azoth stood by the window and looked at Master Blint, but the man's pockmarked face betrayed nothing. Moments later, the door banged open. The Lord General lurched in, sword drawn. What have you done? He roared. His knees bowed and he leaned heavily against the doorframe to keep from falling. Master Blint didn't say anything. The general blinked and tried to straighten, but a spasm passed through his body and his stomach cramped and it passed, and he said, How? Put a contact poison on the door latch, Master Blint said. It seeps right through the skin. But if we'd reached a deal, the Lord General said, if I'd have opened the door for you, if you'd worn gloves, I had other plans. Now I want you to listen very closely. King is an incompetent, treacherous, foul-mouthed child. So I'm going to make this very clear. I'm a first-rate wet boy. He's a second-rate king. I won't work for him. If you want, you can hire me yourself. I'll kill the king, but I won't kill for him. There's no way you or he can pressure me. I know he won't believe that because Eileen Gunder is the kind of man who believes he can get whatever he wants. So here's why he's going to believe, Master Blint stood. First, I'm going to leave a message for him tonight in the castle. Second, you're going to investigate what happened to Count Yosir Lin. He was the client who betrayed me. Third, there's what has already happened to you. And fourth, do sit, Aegon, and put away the sword. It's insulting. Lord General Aegon crashed into the chair. The long sword fell from his fingers. He didn't appear to have strength to pick it up. Regardless, his eyes were still clear and he was hearing every word Master Blint said. Lord General, I don't care who he kills. I know you have this inn surrounded and there are crossbow men covering the windows of this room. They don't matter. More importantly, the king's threats don't matter. I will be no man's lapdog. I serve who I will and when I will. And I will never serve Eileen Gunder. Azoth, come here. Azoth went to his master, wondering why Blint had used his name. He stood in front of Master Blint, who rested his hands on Azoth's shoulders and turned him to face General Aegon. Azoth here is my best apprentice. He's agile, he's smart, he learns things after being told once. He works tirelessly. Azoth, tell the general what you've learned about life. Without hesitation, Azoth said. Life is empty. Life is meaningless. When we take a life, we aren't taking anything of value. Wet boys are killers. That's all we do. That's all we are. There are no poets in the bitter business. Lord General, Blint said. Are you with me? I'm with you, the general said, fire raging in his eyes. Master Blint's voice was ice. Then know this. I'd kill my own apprentice before I'd let you use him against me. General jerked sharply in his chair as if shocked. He was staring at Azoth. Azoth followed his gaze to his own chest. Several inches of bloodied steel were protruding from him. Azoth saw them and felt uncomfortable pushing, spreading sensation from his back all the way through his center. It seemed cool, then warm, then painful. He blinked his eyes slowly and looked back to the general, whose eyes were full of horror. Azoth looked at the steel. He recognized that blade. He cleaned it the day he went looking for Dollgirl. He hoped Master Blint would at least wipe it down before he brought it back for Azoth to clean. It had filigree on the blade that held blood if you were had filigree on the blade that... Damn. Stuttered right there. It had filigree on the blade that held blood if you let it dry there. Azoth had to use it as the point of a stiletto to pick it out. It took hours. Then Azoth was drawn to the location of the dagger. At that angle on a child's chest, it would have clipped the fat vessel above the heart. If so, the debtor would go down as soon as the dagger was drawn out. There would be a lot of blood. The debtor would die within seconds. Azoth's body jerked as the dagger disappeared. He was vaguely aware of his knees folding. He slumped over sideways and felt something warm spilling over his chest. The wood planks on the floor jostled him unmercifully as he sprawled over them. He lay facing up. Master Blint was holding a bloody dagger in his hand and saying something. Did Master Blint just stab me? Azoth couldn't believe it. What had he done? He thought Master Blint had been pleased with him. It must have been Dollgirl. He must have still been mad about it. It had seemed things were going so well. There was white gold light everywhere, and he was warm. So warm. Oh, there goes Azoth. Old Kyler Stern just got stabbed through the back of the chest. Where are we at? We're almost at an hour. Alright. Probably just gonna do about an hour today. Not too crazy of a stream. I mean, we're making a pretty dang good progress. Oh yeah, now that I don't have the blur going on, this is what the book looks like, actually. Like my 4th time reading through it. Chapter 20. Your Majesty, please! King Elingundr IX threw himself down into his throne. Brant, it's one man. One! He swore a stream of curses. You'd have me send my family to the country for fear of one man? Your Majesty, Lord General Brant Hagon said. The definition of man might not cover Durzo Blint. I understand the implications. Indeed! Do you know the talk it will cause if I send my family away on a moment's notice? The king cursed again unconsciously. I know what they say about me, I know! I'll not give them this to drool on, Brant. Your Majesty, this assassin is not given to idle threats. For the sake of all that is holy, he murdered his own apprentice, just to make a point. A sham. Come on, General, you were drugged. You didn't know what was going on. My body was afflicted, not my mind. I know what I saw. The king sniffed, then curled his lip as he caught the faint odor of brimstone in the air. Damn it, can't those idiots make anything work? One of the ducts that carried hot air from the Voss Island crack just north of the castle had broken again. He doesn't appreciate how much the engineers save us every year by heating the entire castle with pipes embedded in the very stones. He doesn't care that the turbines spinning in the wind rising from the crack give him the power of 200 windmills. That he smells brimstone once a fortnight. Maybe you saw him kill a boy, the king said. Who cares? You should, Regnus would have. It was obviously some street rat he picked up for the purpose of impressing you. With all due respect, sire, you're mistaken. I've dealt with formidable men. I faced Dorgan Dunwall in single combat. I fought Underlord Greyblon's Lancers. Yes, 1,000 goddamn battles from my goddamn father's time. Very impressive, the king said. But you never learned anything about ruling, did you? General Aegon stiffened. Not like you have, your majesty. Well, if you had, General, you would know that you can't damage your own reputation. He cursed long and unfluently again. Flee my own castle in the night. There was no working with him. The man shamed Aegon. And should have shamed himself. Yeah, Aegon was... I'm trying to plug my phone in. Oh my god. Alright. There was no working with him. The man shamed Aegon and should have shamed himself. Yet Aegon was sworn to him, and he decided long ago that an oath measured the man who gave it. It was like his marriage. He wouldn't have taken his vows simply because his wife couldn't give him children. But did vows hold when your own king had plotted to take your life, and not in an honor battle, but with an assassin's blade in the night? That had been before Aegon had sworn his allegiance to the man. However, now that he had sworn, it didn't matter that. Had he known then what he knew now, he would have chosen to die rather than serve Eileen Gundr the Ninth. Your Majesty, may I at least have permission to hold an exercise tonight for my guards that include your mage? The captain is in the habit of doing such things unannounced to keep the men at the ready. Though I wonder why I preserve your empty head. Oh, to hell with you, General. You and your goddamn paranoia. Fine, do as you please. General Aegon turned to leave the throne room. The king's predecessor, Davin, had been empty-headed too. But he'd known it, and he'd deferred to his counselors. Eileen X, the king's son, was only 14 years old, but he showed promise. He seemed to have gotten some of his mother's intelligence, at least. If 10 were old enough to take power, maybe I'd provoke this assassin. Dear God, maybe I'd hire him. General Aegon shook his head. That was treason, and had no place in a general's mind. Fergund Safasti had been appointed to serve in Cennaria more for his political acuity than his talent. The truth was, he'd barely earned his blue robe, but his talents, if not his talent, had served him well in Cennaria. The king was both stupid and foolish, but he could be worked with, if one didn't mind petulance and showers of curses. But tonight Fergund was wandering the castle as if he were a guard. He'd appealed to the king, but Eileen the Ninth, they'd called him Niner for short, the 9-year-old, and not the Ninth, only when drinking with friends, had cursed him and ordered him to do whatever the Lord General said. As far as Fergund was concerned, Lord General Aegon was a relic. It was too bad that he hadn't been able to adapt to Niner. The old man had things to offer. Then again, the fewer counselors the king had, the more important Fergund became. Disgusted with his knight's assignment, what was he looking for anyway? Fergund continued his lonely circuit of the castle yard. He considered asking for an escort, but mages were supposed to be more deadly than any 100 men. That wasn't exactly true in this case. Didn't do him any good to advertise the fact. Castle yard was an irregular diamond, 300 paces wide and almost 400 long. It was bordered on the northwest and southeast by the river as Plith. Split for half a mile by Voss Island, came rushing back together south of the castle. The yard was animated with sounds of men, horses, and dogs settling down for the night. It was early enough that men were still up gambling in the barracks, and the sound of a lyre and good-natured cursing floating a short way into the dense fog. Fergund pulled his cloak tighter around his shoulders. The sliver of moon wasn't doing much to penetrate the cold fog pouring off the rivers and through the gates. The wet air kissed Fergund's neck, and he regretted his recent haircut. The king had mocked his long hair, but Fergund's head lover had adored it. And, now that his hair was short, the king mocked him for that. The fog billowed strangely at the iron gate, and Fergund froze. He embraced the power. Embrace? He'd always thought it felt more like wrestling match. And peered through the fog. Once he held it, the power calmed him. He could see nothing threatening, his hearing and sight were sharper. Breathing deeply, Fergund made himself continue past the gate. He didn't know if it was his imagination, but it felt like the fog pressed the whole wall of the castle like an invading army and poured in through the breach of the iron gate. Fog pulled almost to his shoulders, and the torches mounted over the head of two guards did little to cut the mist. Nodding to them, Fergund turned and started walking back to the castle. He felt the weight between his shoulder blades as eyes boring into him and repressed the urge to look over his shoulder. But as he walked toward the stables, the feeling only grew. The air felt heavy, so thick it was like walking through soup. The fog seemed to curl around him as his passing and lick at the back of his bare neck, taunting him. With the rising of the fog, the moon and the stars totally disappeared. The world was enveloped in cloud. Fergus stumbled as he passed by the corner of the stables. Threw a hand out to steady himself against the wood, but felt something yielding for a moment before it disappeared. Something like he'd touched a man standing there. Staggering back in fear, Fergus clawed for the embrace. He could see nothing. There was no one there. Finally, his talent came to him. He caught a brief flicker of movement into the stables, but it might have been his imagination. Had he smelled garlic? Surely that could only be his imagination, but why would he imagine such a thing? He hesitated for a long moment. But he was a weak mage, not a weak man. He readied a fireball and drew his knife. He came wide around the corner, straining every sense magical and mundane. He jumped through the door and looked around frantically. Nothing. The horses were in their stalls, their odors mingling with the heavy fog. He could hear only the stamping of hooves and the breathing of sleeping animals. Fergus probed the darkness for any sign of movement, but saw nothing. The longer he looked, the more foolish he felt. Part of him thought he should go deeper into the stables, and part of him wanted to leave now. No one would know that he'd left. He could go to the other side of the castle and wander there. On the other hand, if he single-handedly caught an intruder, the king would doubtless reward him well. Niner was good for anything, it was rewarding his friends. Slowly, Fergus drew the fire he'd prepared into visible form. It flickered a little and then held, burning in his palm. A horse in the first stall snorted, suddenly shying back, and Fergus moved to shush the beast. But with fire in one hand and a gleaming knife in the other, the horse was hardly calmed. It whinnied loudly and stomped on the ground, waking its neighbors. "Shh," Fergus said. "Relax, it's only me." But an unfamiliar man with mage fire was too much for the animals. They started neighing loudly. The stallion in the second stall started kicking. "Would you stop scaring horses?" a loud voice said behind him. Fergus was so startled he dropped his knife and lost the fire in his hand. He wheeled around. It was just the stable master, a squat and bearded man from the Isle of Planga. Dorg Gamut came in behind Fergus holding a lantern. Gave Fergus a look of pure disdain while the mage picked his knife gingerly out of a pile of horse droppings. Dorg moved down the road quickly, and at his touch and his voice, the horses calmed instantly. Fergus watched, feeling awkward. Finally, Dorg came back past him. "I was just Use a lantern, you loot," Dorg said. He stuck his lantern into Fergus's hand. He walked away, saying to himself, "Scaring my damn horses with your fire." "It's mage fire. There's a difference," Fergus said to his back. Dorg stormed out of the stables, and Fergus had barely turned around when he heard a thump. Fergus ran outside. Dorg was lying on the ground, unconscious. Before he could shout anything, Fergus felt something hot in his neck. He reached a hand up and felt someone take the lantern gently out of his other hand. His muscles went rigid. The lights went out. Chapter 21. "What the hell have you done?" Mama Kay asked, looking up as Durzo crashed through the door. "Good work," Durzo said, and with time left for a night out, he grinned sloppily. He reeked of alcohol and garlic. "I don't care about your binges. What have you done to Azoth?" She looked at the still form lying on the bed in her home's guest room. "Nothing," Durzo said, grinning foolishly. "Check, ain't nothing wrong with him." "What do you mean? He's unconscious. I came back here and the servants were all in a flutter because you'd appeared here with, they said it was a corpse. Came up and Azoth was here. I can't wake him. He's dead to the world." For some reason, that set Durzo off. He started laughing. Mama Kay slapped him hard. "Tell me what you've done. Have you poisoned him?" That brought Durzo back. He shook his head, trying to clear it. "He's dead. He has to be dead." "Whatever do you mean?" "Guinevere, gorgeous," Durzo said. "I can't say. Someone threatened me. Someone who can do what they said they'd come after Azo first, then you, and then they knew about Vonda." Mama Kay drew back. Who had the power to threaten Durzo? Who or what could scare Durzo Blint? Durzo sank into the chair and put his face in his hands. "They have to think he's dead, especially after tonight." "You faked killing Azoth?" Durzo nodded. "To show I didn't care, to show they couldn't push me." "But you do," Mama Kay thought. "And they can." She knew Durzo was thinking it too. The wet boy had never been as invincible as he seemed. When his control cracked, it burst wide open. The best Mama Kay could do was make sure that Durzo went to one of her brothels and have someone to keep an eye on him. He might be there for 2 or 3 days straight, but she could make sure he was safe, relatively. I'll take care of the boy, Mama Kay heard herself saying. Do you have any idea what to do with him once he wakes up? He'll stay with the Drakes like we were planning. He's dead to this world. What did you use? Durzo looked at her, confused. What poison? Never mind, just tell me, how long will he be unconscious? I don't know. Mama Kay's eyes narrowed. She wanted to slap him again. The man was insane. Even for a poisoner, as gifted as Durzo, it was too easy to misjudge with a child. A child wasn't simply a scaled-down adult. Durzo could have killed him. Durzo might have killed him. Azoth might never recover, or he might wake and be an idiot, or not have the function of his limbs. You knew he might die, she said. Sometimes you have to gamble, Durzo patted his pockets, looking for garlic. You're starting to love that boy, and it scares the hell out of you. Part of you wants him dead, doesn't it, Durzo? If I have to listen to your chit-chat, can't you at least give me a drink? Tell me. Life's empty. Love is failure. Better he dies now than gets us both killed later. With that, Blint seemed to deflate. Mama Kay knew he would say no more. How long will you be whoring? She asked. I don't know, Blint said, barely stirring. Damn you, longer or shorter than usual? Longer, Durzo said after a minute. Definitely longer. How many pages we got left for this chapter? Oh, cool. The stream of curses preceded the king into the throne room by a good 10 seconds. Lord General Aegon could hear servants scurrying out of the way, see the guards at the entrances of the throne room shifting uncomfortably, and note that whatever staff members didn't absolutely need to be there were fleeing. King Eileen IX barged in. Brant, you pile of... The Lord General mentally erased the long list of repulsive things he resembled and refocused his attention when Niner got to the point. What happened last night? Your Majesty, the Lord said. We don't know. Another stream of curses. Some of them more creative than usual. But Niner wasn't terribly creative, and no one dared to swear in his presence, so his arsenal was limited to variations on the word shit. What we do know is this, Brant Aegon said. Someone broke into the castle. I suppose we can assume it was a man we've spoken about. No need for listening spies to learn everything. Durzo Blint, the king said, nodding. The Lord General sighed. Yes, your Majesty. He apparently rendered unconscious one guard in the castle itself, and Fergan Safasti, and your stable master in the stables. More curses, then. What do you mean, rendered unconscious? The king paced back and forth. They didn't have any marks on them, and they couldn't remember anything, though the guard had a small puncture wound on his neck, as if from a needle. The king cursed more, and then cursed the abashed mage. As usual, Aegon found himself getting more bored than offended. King's curses didn't mean anything except, look at me, I'm a spoiled child. Niner finally stumbled across another point. There was nothing else? We haven't found anything yet, sire. None of the guards outside your rooms, your wife's, your daughter's, or your son's reported seeing anything unusual. It isn't fair, the king said, stomping over to his throne. What have I done to deserve this? He threw himself down in his throne and squealed. He practically flew out of his throne. He clutched General Lord Aegon. Oh gods, I'm feeling faint. I'm dying. Damn you all, I'm dying. Guards, help! Guards! The king's voice pitched higher and higher, and he started crying as the guards blew whistles and rang bells and the throne room roared to life. General Aegon plucked the king's hands free and put the weak-kneed man in the arms of his sycophant, Fergan Safasti, who didn't know enough to hold on. The king collapsed to the ground and wept like a child. General Aegon ignored him and strode to the throne. In a moment he saw what he was looking for. A fat, long needle, pointing up from the well-worn cushion on the throne. He tried to pull it out with his fingers, but the needle stuck. It was supported so that it wouldn't just fold over the king if the king sat on it wrong. General Aegon drew his knife and slit the cushion open. He pulled out the needle, ignoring the bells, ignoring the guards pouring into the room surrounding the king, and herding everyone else into the side room where they could be held and questioned. Lord General Aegon pulled out the needle. A note tied to it said, I could have been poisoned. Move aside, a little man from the back was calling out, pushing soldiers out of his way. It was the king's physician. Let him through, the Lord General ordered. The soldiers moved back to the king, who was whimpering on the floor. Brant motioned to the physician, showed him the note and whispered, the king will need some poppy wine, maybe a lot, but he isn't poisoned. Thank you, the man said. Behind him, the king had pulled down his pants and was arching his neck, trying to see the wound on his buttocks. But believe me, I know how to deal with him. The general suppressed a smile. Escort the king to his apartments, he told the guards. Set a watch on the door with 2 captains inside the room. The rest of you return to your duties. Brant, the king yelled as the guards picked him up. Brant, I want him dead, damn it, I want him dead! Brant Aegon didn't move until the throne room was empty once more. King wanted to wage war against a shadow with no corporeal parts except the steel of its blades. That was what it would be to assassinate a wet boy, or worse. How many men would die before the king's pride was solved? Or salved. My lord, a woman asked tentatively. It was one of the housekeepers. She had a wrapped bundle in her hands. I was chosen to report for the housekeeper, sir. But with the king gone and all, could I... The general looked at her closely. She was an old woman, obviously afraid for her life. He bet she was chosen to have... by having pulled a short straw. What is it? Excuse me. As housekeepers found these, someone left them in each of the royal bedchambers, sir. The housekeeper handed him the bundle. 6 black daggers were inside of it. Where? Brant asked, choking the word out. Under the royal family's pillows, sir. Ba-dum-ba, chapter 22, and we're going to leave it there. We're getting into the good stuff. I'm going to have to get book 3 sooner than later. So we can, you know, make it through the entire series. But yeah, I'm going to work on getting book 3 to this and work on getting my first book for the Avery Cates series too. The Avery Cates series is going to be members only because I'm going to do my best to try to go through it and add sound effects and everything. So it's going to be a little bit of editing and whatnot, but will definitely be worth it. So thank you all for stopping by this wonderful little lovely short hour stream of reading. I'm still, you know, trying to get money for the kitties. I'd like to spoil them a little bit, so it's not dire. They're not in emergencies. Babysitting's still good. We're okay. But any donations from henceforth for the kitties is just going to go to getting them treats, toys. Maybe we can get them a new tower, like cat tower thingy or something. But yeah, appreciate everybody for doing what they do to help me stop by the stream and all that jazz. Tonight, 6 p.m., we shall be back. Blasphemous. We got a lot to do, so I'll go ahead and see you around that time, guys. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you tonight.